can you be born in the wrong body? Born in the wrong body is a great description of a person's feeling, but it is not a diagnosis. Using this phrase can lead naive youths to believe that they can have a different body, when in truth, they can only change the body that they already have. So it's a very, very, I would say, inappropriate phrase. You can only be born. I didn't have a choice of bodies to be born in. I was born in my body. That was part of the birthing process. And so to say you're born in the wrong body is letting like very vulnerable, naive people to think, I can have an option. I can be somebody else. I can have a different body. You can have a different outward body, but you can't have a different inward body. It's not actually possible. And so we need to be aware of the kind of the intense social phenomenon and the social context that's happening here. This is a quote from Dr. Littman's study. It's just a very weird scenario around the numbers that Dr. Littman noticed. The expectant prevalence of transgender young adult individuals is 0.7%. Yet more than a third of the friendship groups described in this study had 50% or more of the adolescents or young adults in the group becoming transgender identified in a similar time frame. So that was a localized increase to more than 70 times the expected prevalence rate. And so it's a complicated stat, but it's a very important one. So if it's 0.7 of the population, and yet in these friendship groups, it was 70 times that stat, you're kind of going, well, something is happening. I'm not sure what's happening, but it certainly needs exploration. It needs thought. We need to think about this, because when something is 70 times the expected prevalence rate, something's going on, and it needs thought and exploration. So about social contagion, it's the spread of effect or behaviors through a population. It's most always historically been most common among adolescent girls. And you're aware of the huge rises among adolescent girls in this cohort. Peer contagion is the process where peers mutually influence each other. It's associated with gender dysphoria and also with depressive symptoms such as disordered eating, aggression, bullying, drug use. Very often the risk factors among social contagion among groups, among peer groups, would be co-rumination, excessive empathy, repetitive discussion of an issue, excessive reassurance. You can just so imagine these gorgeous friend groups, kind of, excessive empathy and excessive reassurance and repetitive discussion, positive reinforcement, and competitive friendship cliques. So just to be aware of that. I do think clinicians have to be very careful around their language and their terminology. You need to take some time to learn the language, the terminology, and the acronyms so they're not a superficial obstacle to therapeutic progress. Defenses can manifest through a fixation on language, and I think it would be the role of the clinician not to allow that fixation to become an impediment to good therapy. A robust but understanding and flexible approach is often very necessary. Mistakes will be made. I'm a great believer in mistakes being made. The language and terminology involved in gender-related distress is constantly changing, but making mistakes provides valuable opportunities for a therapeutic process. So you don't need to be afraid of making a mistake because we are fallible humans. I want to point out about social transition requires a change of name, pronouns, clothes, hairstyle. It can be a therapeutic intervention that increases the likelihood of full medical transition. Ken Zucker did a great article on that in 2019. It can solidify, he mentions it and he describes it, can solidify and concretize the individual's perspective. And a depth perspective provides more insight for everybody. There isn't very much research. I shouldn't have said he wrote an article on it. There isn't very much research on social transition. We need masses more research on this phenomenon before we can figure out where we're going with it. I would say it's a very distinct psychosocial intervention. It shouldn't be undertaken without clinical supervision. It shouldn't be undertaken lightly. It's never been undertaken before. Never before have we heard of it's, I'll put aside like freakishly tiny, vanishingly rare numbers. Children changing pronouns. This is new. This has not been done before. And so if you're part of a process that's undertaken to change names and pronouns, be aware there is no research long-term about this. We don't know what is the impact of that. A compassionate, curious, and flexible approach towards the use of young persons' names and pronouns can be helpful.